Good morning. So glad to see all of you and some new faces here. Really wonderful. Paul and I have been on vacation for a couple weeks, and so it's good to be back. And Sue's glad to have us back because we've been alternating talks, and it takes me about 4 days to put a talk together. So she's had an extra week off. Now I have to do 2 in a row, so I'm ramping up. It's like having a vacation, actually, isn't it? Anyway. So born to be of service. Simple topic, but it can be very deep. And I have to talk to you about what I'm excited about in my life, because otherwise it would be kind of boring. And, and so I wanted to know how many of you know the actor Neil deGrasse Tyson, who does the Cosmos series on TV. More than I thought. Great. Oh, wonderful, man. He's so into the cosmos, so into that. And he wrote a little book that I encourage you to find. It's called Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. It's just a little book, and I underline practically the whole thing. I just like, oh, wow, that was good. Oh, wow, that was good. So Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. I thought I'd share one of his opening paragraphs. What we do know about the universe is that it had a beginning and it continues to evolve. And yes, every atom in our body is traceable to the Big Bang and to the thermonuclear forces in the stars that exploded more than 5 billion years ago. We are stardust. We've been brought to life and then empowered by the universe to figure it out, and we've only just begun. Can you feel the excitement in his voice? So what I read from that is we've been empowered by the universe to figure it out, and we call the universe God. When you see universe in our teaching, it's a capital U, because it was created by the one, and so it's kind of interchangeable. And so that infinite intelligence is the universe, and we've been empowered to figure it out. Now why? I don't know. Maybe it's a game. I don't know. But it's very, very powerful. You know, when you talk about service, to me, he has done tremendous service to the knowledge of humanity. He and all the people like him, because the universe continues to expand. Creativity continues to expand. We are creative beings. You know, everything that you see around us has started with an idea, a creative idea in mind, and sometimes we don't know where it came from. It's like a little butterfly that goes by. It's like, oh, that's a nice idea, and then all of a sudden we're creatively acting upon it or doing something with this. You know, many people understood this creative nature of the universe, and they really researched it in what it applies to our individual lives. And you know, that started with Plato, Socrates, Jesus, Buddha, Sri Aurobindo, Ernest Holmes, Emerson, Troward Quimby, Yogananda, and the list goes on and on of people who have tried to share with us that this creative nature of the universe is alive in us, and we have the power to implement that in various ways, both positive and negative. So it's true, we're empowered, and you know, sometimes it helps to be able to relate to God in a name. I like to say infinite intelligence. Maybe God works for you. God doesn't always work for a lot of people, but maybe Big Sweetie works, who knows? Or maybe Bob. Bob could be your God. But whatever it is, when we check in with it and we study about its nature, we see how it interrelates in every part of our life. And that's what we call the spiritual path, walking the spiritual path. Some people may hear that and go, oh yeah, walk slow and meditate. Yeah, well, maybe tomorrow. No, the spiritual path is being awake every day. Every day you're walking. Every day we're walking, and when we go into nature and see a hummingbird or a beautiful rose and connect with that. One time last spring, I was looking at the beautiful flowers on this tree back here, and I said to the tree in my mind, I said, why are you doing this? What is this about? And all I heard, and you know, mine's an interesting thing, was to provide nectar for the butterflies. I thought, oh, isn't it great that even a tree has a purpose? not just to be beautiful and bear fruit or whatever. But that kind of connection creates a sense of inner peace that you don't find everywhere. And when we walk the spiritual path and find ourselves connecting and communing with Spirit, what a joy that is. And you can find it in nature. And I wanted to share one Bible story that best represents this, and it's the prodigal son. And I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's about a son who asked his father for his inheritance. And then he moved out and he squandered all of it in what they call riotous living. And he squandered it, and things got so bad that he found himself feeding swine, which for a Jewish person was the worst of the worst. And he started thinking about his father's home and how wonderful it was. And he decided to go back to the father. And what did the father do? He gave him a big ring, a big hug, and had a big party. Now that's the kind of God I love. That no matter how far astray we go, we can always come back to that love, and it's celebrated throughout the cosmic universe. For many of us, I think we've been identified one time or another with our body, thin enough, tall enough, cute enough, with our clothes, are we dressed properly, with our car, maybe with our friends. We identify with these outer things, and then maybe we do some riotous living. I won't ask you, and you don't ask me what that was. I think a few of us have been there. And it was fun at the moment. But anyway, there's something that starts, now see who's laughing the loudest. But something starts pulling at us, kind of nagging at us in the back of our mind. There's got to be more than this. Who are we really? What are we really here for? How do we connect with that greater something that we know has created this mosaic of a universe that's so spectacular and beautiful? And really all it's doing is calling us home. Like the prodigal son, Spirit is calling us home. Well, those of us who have been around here for a while, personally since '87, at some point I surrendered and I walked through the doors. I surrendered. I wanted to know my real self. I wanted to know my spiritual self. And I vividly remember that day because Dr. James was talking, as he usually talked a beautiful talk, and within minutes I was just crying and I could not stop. Even when people said, "What's your name?" I blah, blah. Yeah, well, that's an interesting name. No. But it was with that love that I felt here that within a few weeks I started taking classes, because there was no hell and damnation here. You won't find that here. What you find is you're coming home to understand yourself and your own pure connection with God. And then what you find is you want to help other people. You want to be in service. You want to be the light in your friend's life, the light in your parents' life, the light in your neighbor's life. You want to be able to give with love, expecting nothing in return. And that is what we call seva, selfless service to God. And Dr. James brought that concept not only here, but to our organization as a whole worldwide. Giving of your time, your talent, without expecting anything in return. And I always get a kick out of Sherry Miller. She's here, and she says, "I was at Starbucks this morning in the line, and the car before me paid for me, and I paid for the person behind me, and the clerk said this has been going on all day." We're all just giving. Selfless service. You're not expecting the person in the car behind you to come up and go, "Thank you." Or you just do it and you just smile and you just beam the rest of the day. Is that right? Yeah, she's great at that. So it's fun to do something with nothing expected in return. Well, we have a new SEVA program going. We have 17 SEVA programs if you want to help in any one of those, selfless service. And it's feeding the pets of the homeless. And Bill and Shirley, who are our security people in this trailer out here, they love dogs, if you know Shirley at all. And she brought up the idea of helping to feed pets of the homeless, because about 10 to 15% of homeless on average have a dog, or mostly dogs, with them. And I said, let me think about that. And we started researching, and we found a national nonprofit in Carson City, Nevada, called Feeding Pets of the Homeless. How would you have known? And so we contacted them, and we've been accepted into their program. And locally, we've contacted POP to help distribute food, and we're contacting the Rescue Mission, and we're contacting the Haven Humane, and a couple of others, because it's important to take a big bag of dog food and put it in smaller quantities that they can carry with them. So that's part of it. And the beauty of that is we get to do it as selfless service, not expecting anything in return. And we can just picture these little dogs and big dogs, just real food, finally. No more McDonald's sandwiches and no more crackers. Absolutely, I'm thrilled to have some real dog food. Well, she started this because when she went to New York 8 years ago, many homeless on the street, she saw many of these homeless people and their animals just loving one another, caring for one another. And she realized how non-judgmental the animals were. They weren't judging their owner, they were just loving their owner. So they were loyal, not asking anything in return. And then in the cold nights, she noticed that they gave the homeless warmth. These pets gave the homeless warmth and sometimes protection. And she thought, at least I could help provide some nutritious food. So she went home and started this. And she also collects donations to do emergency surgery on pets of the homeless when they may get hit by a car or get in a fight or do something, but also to give them vaccinations. And so last year, she had 9 programs around the country where vets contributed their services at a discount, and she paid the vets through donations where they could get their vaccinations and get a checkup and things like that. It's really wonderful. So we're part of 26 states now that have this Feeding Pets for the Homeless program. And if that's something that feels right to you, we'd love to have your help, because we had 8 52-pound bags of dog food out there yesterday, and you just don't give that to a homeless person. So we have to rebag it. And so things like that. If you'd like to help, I've got a sign-up sheet at the board desk in the entryway. One of the other things that excites me is Neale Donald Walsch's books, Conversations with God. He's been writing these for about 15 years. And his message just dovetailed really well with Neil's on the cosmos. He says that we're one and exist in a shared global state of being. That's just a different way of looking at this oneness, a shared global state of being. And in his conversations with God, he has found that we express that being best when we're in service. I thought, another one I can quote today. That's really good. And he says, the fastest way to apply anything in your life is to help others apply it. The fastest way to use any wisdom that resides in your soul is to help someone else, because we are one. We're all brothers and sisters. He wrote that the one who lives the fullest life is the one who scatters love wherever they go. And then he proposes 2 magic questions if you're unsure about yourself. In that moment, is this really who I am? Is this really who I am? And the second question is, what would love do now in this situation? These are 2 excellent questions. Is this really who I am, and what would love do now? It was ironically the same question I asked myself several years ago when I was at the Hope Van and we were distributing clothing, and there was 1 pair of shoes among the clothing. And at least 6 homeless people were going after these shoes. Are they my size? Are they my size? And how disappointed they were when it wasn't their size. And something in me said, what would love do now? Heck, I can collect shoes. We can provide shoes. And ever since then, we've been providing well over 500 pairs of shoes a year to the homeless and to the very, very poor, because they walk a long way. Shoes aren't enabling. Shoes are survival. So back to spiritual studies that Sue brought up. And it takes spiritual study to deepen that connection with God. Our most prominent teacher that we celebrate here is Dr. Ernest Holmes. And he wrote many books on the science of our mind, because you look at the cosmos and you look at what you read, and there's so much science there, and it runs through our mind, the creative part of our nature. So he called this philosophy religious science. And he wrote a book, The Science of Mind, which is our initial study book. And in the dedication to this, I read it again yesterday. I read it for many years, but I forgot how beautiful it is. He dedicated the book to the truth which sets us free from ourselves and sets us on a pathway of a new experience, which enables us to see through the mist to the eternal and changeless reality. Beautiful. He wrote that in 1926. So since I walked through the door here, I've grown so much, and yet I'm amazed I'm still growing and learning and learning. I feel very passionate about this teaching, and we went on this wonderful vacation, and Paul's reading all these mystery novels and crime novels, and here I am with pen in hand reading Emma Curtis Hopkins' High Mysticism, a book I avoided for 20 years. Deep as the ocean. And over 10 days of vacation, I only made it half the way through. I'll talk about it someday, but it'll be a while. So we were on this wonderful vacation on American Cruise Lines, and we started in Reverend David's hometown, Clarkston, Washington, came down the Columbia River to Astoria, Oregon, then back to Portland. The best part of the trip was a gentleman by the name of Todd Weber. He is a historian and loves Lewis and Clark's expedition, and he dressed like them, and he had all these great stories, and we learned all about the expedition. You know, I thought, yeah, it was an expedition, but I did not realize the depth and complexity of it. And he really brings it to life. It was 1804 to 1806. In 1803, Napoleon sold the Louisiana Purchase property to the U.S. That was like what makes up about 15 states in the middle of the U.S. Napoleon sold it to us. And the British had already been there too, and the British were already in Puget Sound. So here we are east, and we are now, Thomas Jefferson, the president, said, you know, we need to explore out there, because I know there's an ocean at the other end of this continent. We don't know how far it is, and we don't know how the best way to get there, and we don't know what the plants are, what's the soil like, what's the climate like. So he hired Captain Meriwether Lewis to explore that territory, the Louisiana Purchase, and then see, can he find a way to get through to the ocean in the Pacific Northwest. And he ordered him to school before he did this to learn about climates, animals, plants, and native peoples. So he wanted him to come back with not just a small report, but a report on all those things. So Meriwether Lewis invited his bud, Captain William Clark, to join the team. And this is 1803, and he paid $20 for a Newfoundland dog to join the trip. Because they're big, and they've got web feet, and they're great swimmers, and he knew they would be going through a lot of rivers on the way. And then he hired a gentleman and his wife. She's a Shoshone Indian, Sacagawea. Now, Todd Weber said there's 14 different ways to pronounce her name, and he did many of them, but most of us know Sacagawea. But some of the people just said, "Hey, Julie." They just had her nickname Julie. And she was really invaluable because she could communicate with the tribes as they went, because she was kidnapped from the Pacific Northwest as a teenager, brought back to the Dakotas, and so she knew the land, she knew the territory, and her mother taught her how to find roots and berries and what was good to eat and what wasn't. She was very valuable as a guide, and when she started the trip, she had a 2-month-old baby boy. 2 months old, going on this expedition across the country. So she put him on this board and put him on her back, and away they went. I mean, that's to me is just amazing. And after 2 years, they went to the ocean, went to Astoria, and we went to a center celebrating their trip out there. They went back, and when they got back east, they only had lost one life on the whole trip. For their service, the captains and all the men were given a land by Thomas Jefferson. Sacagawea received nothing, but she was in service. That's what she did. Her commitment to service and to the greater goal came through all of them, through their mental determination, their faith, and their very, very hard, life-threatening work. Dr. Holmes writes that the creative soil of our thought is the mental medium through which universal law operates. The idea of going west, the idea of this incredible trip into where no Eastern person had been, was an idea. President Jefferson got onto that idea and found like-minded people to support that. And they had strong faith that they would succeed. There was no doubt in their mind they would not succeed. And the result was an incredible harvest of knowledge about the plants, the animals, the native peoples. So much that they learned from that trip. So when we plant seeds in our life through our ideas, the ones that are going to succeed are the ones that have unqualified faith. We have unqualified faith that we're going to succeed. And then that opens up the intuitive part of our nature to hear how. We don't have to know the how. We have to know the what. And then we have to have faith. It's the grit of the people in the Lewis and Clark expedition that is so compelling to me as I read the stories. And grit today is a principle that we call the law of mind. You really put it in mind enough, and amazing things happen. So I believe Lewis and Clark also held this cosmic perspective that Neil deGrasse Tyson, yes, astrophysics, that he has. And in his book, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, he describes the cosmic perspective about life. And he says it's humble, very humble. It's spiritual, but not religious. He's talking about the cosmos. It's hard to get my mind wrapped around that sometimes when I think about it. He says the cosmic perspective enables us to grasp in the same thought both the large and the small aspects of everything. The universe, a microphone, large and small. The cosmic perspective opens our mind to extraordinary ideas, but does not leave us susceptible to believing anything that we're told, which is you find here. We're not telling you how. We're just encouraging you to think and study and grow. The cosmic perspective enables us to see beyond our circumstances of today and transcend our primal instincts to think beyond just food, shelter, clothing. It also embraces our, I love this, genetic kinship with all life on earth. We're all stardust. Everything is from that original stardust. So he says we have a chemical kinship with things yet to be discovered. So the science of mind invites us to make the most out of our time here, to receive, to accept, to receive this creative power that we've been blessed with. And if you're really ready for a rich exploration of life, as Sue said, our core classes start this week. Mine on Tuesday is called Science of Mind 101. So if you're here for the very early time, or if you've been here a long time, it might be good to refresh yourself. And I was looking, I realized it's the 77th class I've taught here since I became a practitioner and could teach. That's a little more years than I am old, so there's all this wisdom built up. Trying to share it with you in different ways that makes relevance to your life today. So in 101, you'll learn how to read Holmes because his book was published in 26 and then again in 1936, but you'll be able to understand him. And then you will feel yourself blossoming like the beautiful spring roses. You will just feel it. It intuitively will happen. If you're on any SAVA team, there are scholarships for you, and you can just ask for a scholarship and take the class at no cost, only buy the book. And so I'd like to leave you with an analogy about learning to commune with God and with His creative power. We went and saw Multnomah Falls while we were there. Of course, this week the whole Columbia River Gorge is full of wildfire and smoke. So I thought this was an interesting analogy, because if you go to the waterfall of wisdom with only a thimble, you take away a thimble of wisdom. And if you go to the waterfall of wisdom with a gallon jug, you'll take a gallon jug. But if you go to the waterfall of wisdom and you stand under the waterfall, you just allow the grace of God to pour through you. That's the benefit of spiritual study, learning the principles, how they work, and applying them in your life. So if you're still not sure, let's check in with those two questions. Is this life I'm living right now all of whom I'm really meant to be? And if I've been only going to God with a thimble, yet expecting to receive more, what would God's love recommend to me now? Let's take that into prayer. In this beautiful moment, I am open. I am listening. I am listening to my intuitive nature and seeing your intuitive nature. I am listening as what is mine to do today? Yes, it is love. But there are so many other opportunities, and so I ask for the wisdom to know what is the right path for me and what is right for you. We're all different, and yet we're all the same. So I say thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Infinite Intelligence. Thank you, Big Sweetie. Thank you, Bob. Thank you so much for the realization of the value of each life and the value of getting to know you. Putting that to practice in a world that just yearns for more compassion, more love, and more service. I accept the challenge for myself and you, knowing as we let go and we are spoken to and now we know. And love shows the way. And so it is. Thank you.